Welcome to my channel, where the scariest stories come to life. Before we dive into today's chilling tale, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications, so you never miss a story. Now, let's get into the horror. This happened decades ago in the rural Deep South. I was 6 or 7 and had been badgering my parents, who both worked late, to let me be a latchkey kid rather than go to the hated kinder care after school. They finally agreed and decided my first day staying home alone would be on Parent-Teacher Conference Day, which was a half day coming up in a few days. We went over the various things I needed to know. My mom invented some what-if scenarios, and I had to demonstrate that I knew their phone number, the police number, the fire department number, and what to do in each situation. I also agreed to call them immediately upon arriving home. I was just very, very excited. So the day finally came. I rode the bus home all by myself. I recall my heart pounding as we turned down my road. It was such a magical thing to be getting home mid-morning on a spring day. I felt so grown up. My bike, the lake a couple of miles away, and the woods all beckoned to me, but first, of course, I had to call my mom. I unlocked the door and walked in, immediately struck by the fact that things seemed different somehow. I called her office to let her know I was safe and sound, and almost as an aside, I asked, "What did you guys do with the stereo?" "What do you mean?" they asked. "The stereo speakers are here with wires next to them." "Oh, never mind, I guess Dad's reorganizing. I can hear him upstairs." "Hey, your dad's not home. Listen to me. Put the phone down and run to Andy's house right now." It sunk in, as I heard footsteps coming down the stairs, that this was not one of my parents in the house. I was alone with a stranger. I took off, and as I started to run out of the driveway, I saw 2 skeevy-looking guys running out of the house after me. It turns out I arrived home right as a burglary was taking place. They only managed to snatch some prescription drugs, some of my mom's shoes and underwear, and some records, including my favorite John Denver and the Muppets album. It was a pretty crazy situation for my first day home alone. In 1979, I was a 14-year-old girl living in Las Vegas, Nevada. I lived with my parents and 2 older brothers. Often, I would come home and be alone for a couple of hours after school, as everyone else in my family had a day job. No one else would arrive home until at least 5 o'clock on weekdays. One afternoon, I heard the doorbell ring. When I looked through the peephole, I saw him. It was one of my brother's friends. I opened the door to greet him, since I obviously knew him. I told him my brother wasn't home and that I was there alone. He said he already knew my brother wasn't there, that my brother had told him he could come by and grab something from his bedroom. I let him in and told him he could go ahead and get what he came for. Obviously, I was naive and stupid. I was very innocent and trusting. As I turned around to lead him to my brother's room, he suddenly grabbed me from behind. He turned me around and shoved me up against the wall. I was a tiny girl, and he was fairly large. It was very easy for him to hold me there. At first, he tried to kiss me. I told him no and kept turning my face away. I kept repeating for him to get off me and let me go. I was in total panic mode. He just grinned and held me by my arms, pressing me into the wall so tightly I could barely move. Then he started to tug hard at my clothes, and with one hand, he pulled so hard on my top that he ripped it wide open. He was trying to rule me through fear, but in doing so, he let up on some of the pressure. I was finally able to move. I took the opportunity and managed to squirm out from underneath him. As soon as I was free, I ran down the hallway as fast as I could. I think he must have hesitated for a second because he didn't catch me right away. But I could hear him running fast behind me. I ran all the way to my parents' room at the end of the hallway. When I entered the bedroom, I dove over the bed to get to the far side where my dad slept. I knew he kept a loaded .357 Magnum under his side of the bed. I grabbed the gun and came up from behind the bed just as my brother's friend entered the room. I lifted the gun with both hands and pointed it straight at him. I had been taught at a young age how to shoot that gun, just in case, so I had a lot of confidence handling it. He must have seen in my eyes that I would really shoot him, because he immediately stopped. His eyes went wide, and he turned ghostly white. Then he turned around and ran straight out of the house. I knew, instinctively, that I had saved myself from a horrible fate. I also realized I had been far too trusting and naive. I grew up a lot that day. I never told my parents what happened. My naive self thought I would get in trouble or something. I've since learned that's very common for victims like me. I did end up asking my brother what his friend had come by to get, and I learned that my brother was selling weed to his friends. Thankfully, I never saw that guy again. And I never answered the door again when I was home alone. I learned a very hard, very valuable lesson that day. It was summertime, and I was at home by myself. Both of my parents were away at work. This was probably in the late morning. All I really remember is that it was a very nice day outside. I'd gone out into the front yard and was reading a book in a chair we had out there. After about an hour, I noticed a car driving down our street. A few cars had already gone by, which I had noticed. We lived on a quiet street that didn't usually get much traffic, mostly just neighbors. But this one car was going very slowly. It was a black four-door sedan, and after passing by, it went further down the street and out of sight. I didn't think much of it at first, but only about a minute later, I saw the same car coming back from the other direction. When it passed by our house again, it slowed down even more. I didn't recognize it, and I couldn't help but feel suspicious. Still, the car moved on and left the street. At that point, I was just hoping it was someone who was lost or looking for an address. I stayed outside a bit longer and kept reading. Less than 5 minutes later, the car came back again, driving by very slowly. I just had a bad feeling about it. Luckily, it passed me and continued down the street. This time, though, I decided to go back inside. After I got in, I went to the kitchen to grab something to drink. I was heading to my bedroom, but before that, I stopped at the front window. When I looked out, I saw the same car now sitting in our driveway. I couldn't believe it. The car was parked at the back end, and I couldn't see clearly who was behind the wheel. I did see someone in the driver's seat. It appeared to be a man. I watched the car as it sat there. Nobody got out. I didn't really know what to do. I moved away from the window and walked around the house. I'm not really sure why. When I came back to the front window, I saw that the car was now empty. The man had gotten out, but I didn't know where he had gone. I looked at the front step. No one was there, so he clearly wasn't just coming to knock on the door. I went to another window and looked out, but saw nothing there either. I couldn't figure out what he could possibly be doing. I couldn't think of any logical explanation. I went back to my bedroom, and when I walked in, I saw the man right at my window, just outside of it. We locked eyes for a brief moment before I turned and ran back to the kitchen to grab the phone and call 911. As I did, I saw the man running away past another window. He ran all the way around the house and back to his car. As I called the police, I could hear him driving away. I went through with the call anyway. The police came out to our house, and I spoke with them for a while, telling them everything I could remember. My parents were called and came home from work early. It was one of the craziest moments of my life. I'm really glad the man wasn't able to get inside. After that, I never saw him again. I remembered something that happened to my best friend and me a few years ago, and I figured I'd share it here. While we were seniors in high school, we went on a weekend trip to visit my grandmother a couple of hours away from our town in Georgia. The town we lived in was small by most standards, but still one of the biggest in our part of the state. To get to my grandmother's, we had to drive about 2.5 hours through tiny, rural areas. On our way back from the trip, we stopped at a gas station in the middle of nowhere. There was nothing around but corn and cotton fields. The streets had no signs or lights, not even a stop sign, and there was no cell service. The convenience store attached to the gas station had only a few snacks inside and looked deserted from the outside. We decided not to bother with anything besides the gas. I paid with my card because I didn't want to leave my 5-foot, 100-pound friend alone in the car. While I was pumping gas, another car pulled up on the other side of the single pump. I had just started filling my tank, and because of everything I'd read on sites like Let's Not Meet, I had a weird feeling. I stayed alert and stood with my driver's side door wide open so my friend could see and hear everything. A thin, short man in his late 50s got out of the car. He looked like he was paying at the pump and just standing by his vehicle. But after a few seconds, he moved around and came to stand within a foot of me. He asked if he could pump my gas. Luckily, the nozzle was long enough to keep going without me holding it. I immediately stepped between him and the open car door, ready to jump inside if needed or shove him away to protect my friend. I told him we didn't need help. He looked me up and down with a smirk. You know, pretty girls like you shouldn't be out here all alone. You definitely shouldn't be doing this yourself. Let a man help you. Then he grabbed my hand and reached for the gas pump I was holding. I jerked my hand away and slammed the car door shut. The last thing I wanted was for him to jump in and drive off with my friend inside. Red flags were flying. I remembered something I'd read: it's better to be safe and rude than polite and uncomfortable. So I told him, get away from us. I already said no. Leave us alone. He didn't move. He just raised his chin and stared at me. I stared right back. We had enough gas to get far from there, so I pulled the nozzle out, slammed it back into the pump, jumped into my car, and drove off. As we glanced back in the rearview mirror, we saw that he wasn't even filling his car. He just got in and drove away. My friend was shaking the whole way home, saying she would have let the man pump our gas. I'm just glad we got out of that situation unharmed. Thanks for sticking around till the end. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to give the video a like and leave a comment with your thoughts. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a terrifying tale. See you in the next one.